In 2011, Warner Bros. Released Green Lantern, a movie adaptation of the long-running comic of the same name. As a way of further capitalizing on the film's merchandising opportunities, the company also commissioned Green Lantern the Animated Series. Green Lantern hadn't received as much focus over the years compared to DC's big two, Batman and Superman. The Green Lantern John Stewart had been a prominent part of Justice League Unlimited, and DC Animation had produced two well-received straight-to-DVD movies, but there hadn't been a series that starred him since the 1967 shorts. This new series would be CGI animated, and feature a creative team headed by Bruce Timm, Giancarlo Volpe, Krieg, and Sam Liu, and would air shortly after the movie's release. Bruce Timm, who produced the entire DC animated universe,
those are pretty good,
was originally reluctant to use CG instead of traditional animation, but eventually came around after being talked into the format by Volpe. The 44-minute pilot premiered on Cartoon Network on November 11th, 2011. The series follows the adventures of Hal Jordan and Kilowog, who learn from the leaders of the Green Lantern Corps of the mysterious deaths of the Frontier Lanterns, scattered, minimally trained Green Lanterns who guard the very edges of Guardian territory. Appalled at the Guardians' seeming lack of compassion for their fellow Lanterns, Hal and Kilowog set out to investigate their deaths. By ignoring their instructions and borrowing the Interceptor, a prototype starship capable of making the 9-month journey to frontier space in mere minutes. It contains a highly advanced AI, which Hal dubs Aya. They soon come into conflict with the Red Lanterns, the ones responsible for the murders, who seek vengeance on all Green Lanterns and the Guardians for an at the time unexplained reason. One of their number is Razor, a newly inducted Red Lantern whose growing guilt at his actions leads him to reluctantly join Hal and Kilowog in stopping his former comrades. Through Hal's recklessness in trying to defeat the Red Lanterns, the starship suffers significant damage to its engine, stranding them months from Oa, the home of the Guardians. As the three become more and more dependent upon Aya, her sentient level programming leads her to wish to understand what it is to be alive and what it is to be a Green Lantern, leading Aya to take a more active role in the group. The unlikely four begin seeking out any potential allies in the hope to be able to stop the growing threat of the Red Lanterns. Main theme and intro.
It's short.
Let's try that again. The first few episodes were short as a way of hiding certain reveals and plot points, which I have to say I really like. There's nothing worse in a series than the opening credits revealing a guest star, and it shows the thought put into all areas of the production. Story and characters. The series was produced by Krieg, who also wrote 4 of the show's episodes. Krieg has been a massive presence in animation as a writer, writing for shows which include Batman the Brave and the Bold, The Superhero Squad Show, Monk, Batman and Harlequin, Thunderbirds A Go, and one of my personal favourites, The Flashpoint Paradox. Pacing wise, the first few episodes are slow, choosing to focus on establishing Hal and his unlikely crewmates. The show uses a lot of the Jeff Johns era of Green Lantern stories for the majority of its plots and overall arc, introducing elements and characters that include the Star Sapphires, the Manhunters, Saint Walker, the Thanagarians, and even the Anti-Monitor. The series was not intended to be an origin story, due to Warner Bros. Doing that with the 2011 film, and that the characters Sinestro and Parallax were also not to be used. We see hints of those Yellow Lantern origins, but nothing is ever said directly to link them. So denied access to those parts of the Green Lantern mythos, the writers instead used the Red Lanterns as the first series' main protagonists. As in the comics, they are led by Atrocitus, who in this version resides on the Shard, a massive ship that is actually the remnant of his homeworld. The Red Lanterns are almost a religious order in their fanatic devotion to the cause. Hints of things to come are spread out nicely throughout the series. Each episode tends to be structured around an interesting mystery, which is supported by some genuinely funny dialogue.
Aya, please estimate time for repairs.
Calculating. Ultra warp ready in 9.2...
9 minutes, no problem.
9.21 months.
Okay. Can we form a construct and replace the defective part for the ride home?
The construct would have to be an exact copy of the ultra warp coil mechanism and its 56 moving parts to within a 0.8162 micron tolerance.
Can either of you do that?
I make hammers.
Something that surprised me was the show's inclusion of death. Characters are killed off and corpses even feature. A very bold thing to include in a children's television show. But what really elevates the material is the dynamic between the cast. The rivalry between Kilowog and Razor creates a tense and in certain cases humorous dynamic. Razor's sarcastic and difficult demeanour brings a lot of laughs, but the burden of loss and grief that drives him is also handled well and believably. The difficult relationship between Hal and the Guardians is also a major plot point and leads to some surprising revelations and twists. The standout though is Aya, who was created for the series. She quickly begins to develop and grow in some surprising ways, and is a really good addition to an already interesting and likeable cast of characters. Design and style. Working closely with Bruce Timm was Giancarlo Volpe, whose early work included being the character layout artist and assistant director of King of the Hill, and was heavily involved on Avatar: The Last Airbender, which he directed 19 episodes, one of which he won an Annie for. He also worked closely with George Lucas on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, introducing story elements like the Night Sisters. Volpe also wrote and directed JLA Adventures: Trapped in Time, and storyboarded and directed several episodes of Star vs. the Forces of Evil. The characters look like CGI variants of the DC animated universe, which is in no way a bad thing. The simplistic but stylistic design is well suited to CGI. Some great designs defined with some fantastic and distinctive characteristics. Razor's body language in comparison to his teammates is a nice subtle touch. Soundtrack. Not the most memorable part of the show, it maintains the intro theme with slight variations and is never that intrusive, being used more in the action sequences than the quieter character moments. Voice cast. The main cast is actually quite small. Joss Keaton, who is to voicing Spider-Man what Kevin Conroy is to voicing Batman, excellently conveys Hal Jordan's brash and fearless personality. Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Young Justice actor Jason Spizak brings a bitter and vulnerable presence to Razor. Grey DeLisle, whose previous roles include Vicky on The Fairly OddParents and Queen Butterfly on Star vs. the Forces of Evil, brings a nice mix of curiosity and determination to Aya. However, the voice actor supreme himself, Kevin Michael Richardson, thrives in the role of Kilowog.
I'm happy here, molding, guiding, and nurturing young recruits so they realize their potential. The way, they're like my children. You useless, stumbling piece of stinking unsplat! Do it again!
Clearly enjoying himself with infusing the mannerisms and catchphrases of everyone's favourite Pooza. I wanted to put a bit of focus on Jennifer Hale, who voices several characters in the show, including Carol Fenris. Her career spans 3 decades of voicing characters in shows and computer games, which include the 90s Spider-Man, Justice League, Wreck-It Ralph, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, Brutal Legend, and the Mass Effect games. Those were just a few that stood out. It's an incredible career and someone guaranteed to be featured in the future. SpongeBob himself, Tom Kenny, plays a key role, and Seinfeld alum Phil Norris and Wayne Knight also make appearances. However, Rex Kwon Do himself, Deirdre Bader, steals the show as Guy Gardner. A veteran of television and indie cinema, his most notable voice role is as Batman from The Brave and the Bold, and he is clearly enjoying himself playing a character who is even more sure of himself than Hal Jordan.
That's Vanessa with an I.
My cell number's on there too.
Hey, just wanted to say nice work. You did a great job out there.
Sorry, pal. The autograph shack is closed. Can't risk a hand cramp.
Do I look like a fan?
Halloween costume, weird tiny mask. Yeah, you do.
Veteran English actor Ian Abercrombie, who sadly passed away in 2012, voiced Ganfit. He had an extensive career which included being in cult favourite Army of Darkness and voicing the Emperor in Star Wars Clone Wars. The Clancy Brown effect. Whenever I watch any cartoon, the first thing I check is, does it feature Clancy Brown? Clancy Brown is one of the all-time greats of cinema and television. Most famous for his roles are as the Kurgan in Highlander and Lex Luthor in the Bruce Timm DC era. Still to this day the best Lex Luthor. The man has done a lot of voice work over the years, to the point where his presence has almost been a constant in shows I watched growing up. As a result, any show not featuring him will never in my eyes be truly great. Is he in Green Lantern?
Hell yeah, he is. Only 2 episodes though.
Action. Some very high caliber directors worked on this show. Of particular note are Sam Liu and Rick Moranis. Liu directed 14 episodes. I could do an entire video on his directing credits alone. Batman Superman Public Enemies, 4 Tales of Asgard, Hulk vs. 4, Planet Hulk, Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, The Killing Joke, the previously mentioned Jim Krieg written Batman and Harley Quinn, and the excellent Bruce Timm produced Elseworld story, Justice League Gods and Monsters are just a few. Rick Moranis directed 6 episodes. His work includes the awesome Return of the Caped Crusader and Batman vs. Two-Face, as well as several episodes of the short-lived Beware the Batman. As mentioned earlier, the use of CGI allowed for more cinematic sequences, and every episode features very well choreographed and inventive action, fully making use of the visual format, particularly with some of the power ring constructs. How meta is it? The sound effect used for the power rings was originally used in the also Bruce Timm produced Justice League, which is a nice touch. The show has a good time poking fun at certain aspects of some of the wackier ideas from its source material.
We'll be in position.
By the way, good thing you've got your tiny mask on in case someone from this uninhabited alien planet recognizes you.
Sinestro does make an appearance later in the series, voiced by Hellboy himself, Ron Perlman, who is no stranger to voice work.
Here's a fun fact. Did you know he was the voice of Orion in Justice League?
A big part of the modern Green Lantern comics is the other coloured cause, and this is something that the series seemed to be embracing. Green Lantern was a single season, split into 2 13-episode segments. A total of 26 episodes had been ordered originally. Unfortunately, it was not renewed for another. This was down to a couple of reasons. The first being the lack of decent sales for the toys associated with the live-action Green Lantern film that had also been released that year.
And the second being that the film was complete and utter garbage.
As was its computer game tie-in. As stated in previous videos, cartoons are primarily made to sell toys. A real shame, as Green Lantern the Animated Series was a real achievement with some great characters and genuine heart. There was plenty of scope to tell more stories in this universe. The famous Green Lantern comic arc Blackest Night was hinted at in future seasons, and it's a shame that we will never get to see this interpretation take on that event. All because of the failings of less talented people. 5 Megaminds. It's a genuinely great show. Fantastic visuals matched with fun characters and mature storytelling. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, then please like and subscribe. Until next time.